You're listening to InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy, a podcast on how to be more efficient.
And effective
In
everyday life. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of InfoQuench.
This is the episode that focuses on everything that Jeff loves.
I love records. And you know what? More importantly, I love music. And records, for me, is my preferred way of listening to music. Although, I will admit, I will listen to music in any format whatsoever. That's something that my friend Andrew and I share. We will listen to music 24/7 if we had an opportunity to, which, you know, I just don't. But I love records, and it will be noted, and it should be noted, because I share a house with my lovely wife, Amy. She hates records. Well, she doesn't. Okay, you don't hate them. Yes, you do, actually.
I thought I had a better poker face than that.
No, not at all.
There was a time when we put the house on the market.
Yes.
And I think one of the main things you looked at when we were looking at other options for homes was what the record storage would be.
Oh, I wanted a record room where I could go and listen to records.
We have a record room in this house.
I know.
You have,
but it's not isolated.
For the listening audience, just so you understand the sheer volume of Jeff's passion for records, there are literally over 2,000 records in our home.
Yeah, and they're growing, and they're not going to stop. Like, I'm going to keep collecting records. I love records. It was what makes me happy. Just like doing these podcasts makes you happy.
Every time Jeff comes home with another record, his standard line is, well, at least it's not drugs. Or
at least it's not heroin.
It's not heroin.
At least I'm not addicted to heroin,
I didn't go
baby.
buy crack with the 25 cents. I bought 5 records. I'm like, well, the crack would take up less room in our house.
All right, listen. I have to be serious for a second. Amy really has not given me too much of a hard time about my records because she knows it is harmless, and I don't really. You have to admit, I don't really buy records as much as I used to. I don't. No, if you don't admit, we're going to end this podcast right now.
You have this completely defensive look on your face that it just expresses all guilt for.
I don't really buy that many records a week, only 20. No, I really don't, actually. But anyways, so I was sort of imagining, the ideas behind this podcast before it came to fruition. I was thinking, what, if there were people out there who just wanted to start a record collection, what would I say to them? How could I help them along? How could I be the InfoQuench guru when it comes to like collecting records?
And there's definitely a new wave of people who are now collecting vinyl who didn't have an interest in vinyl before. It used to be a rare occurrence that you'd walk into somebody's home and there would be a record player there.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely
it would be an artifact that people wouldn't recognize, but now it's commonplace.
It is. It's very commonplace, and it's something that a lot of people kind of get into and then get right out of, and I've always been perplexed by that. People will buy a bunch of records in a kind of somewhat decent record player and then just sell it like 2 or 3 months down the road or whatever. And I never really understood that because I'm in it for the long haul. I'm in it for the long game,
Well, I understand that in a way because we're in a day and age where you have every type of music, every genre, every new release is at your fingertips.
Yes.
So you can stream things. So you have this, endless amount of music at your disposal. So to decide what you're going to actually purchase and bring into your home and have this select amount of, I guess, curated music, that's something special that people need to have a real passion for to make that effort and to pare it down to what they really want.
No question. It's, people come into the game and leave the game for different reasons and stuff. But I think that one of the things is that, like, one of the most amazing things for me is to have something ephemeral. And I don't want CDs, although I have a fair amount of CDs too, but because, like I said, I don't really care about how I get my music. I just want it. It's a drug.
That's true.
And anyways, but CDs are fine and dandy or whatever. They sound great.
We don't have cassettes.
We have some cassettes, not that many.
Where are you hiding those?
I don't have many, like maybe 10 or 15.
Okay.
They're in your yoga room underneath, like where you just like, I don't want to see this anymore, and you put like blankets over them. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Oh, they're in the bookcase.
They're in the bookcase.
Amongst
Yeah,
the books.
That is like, banished to the shadows. Anyway, so one of the reasons I like records is because they are ephemeral. There's something you can hold. There's a little bit of a traditional thing of like putting the needle down on the record. It feels great. Like it's an action that you do over and over again.
Well, I have to agree with the people. I think when CDs came out, people were so intrigued by the clarity of the music, right? It was so crisp.
People dumped their records like crazy when that happened.
But I love the, I don't know if the right term, I'm not using the right audiophile terminology, but the artifact of having some scratches or texture when you're playing vinyl, to me, is very nostalgic.
I do not mind, and I am like not the norm at all when it comes to record collectors, but I don't mind like scratches and stuff on. I mean, as long as it's not like, a quiet record and it's a really loud scratch. Like, I don't like that, but like, the regular kind of sound of a record playing with where you can hear the history within the grooves of like, like your father and mother had a record collection and they had crazy parties, and then they would get like scratched, but they'd still play.
I would get up on a Saturday morning, and I think anybody from we were both born in the 70s, and we grew up in the generation of Saturday morning cartoons, and I would get up in the morning on a Saturday morning and look at the record player, and it would have a stack of records. And, because Dad would basically just, rather than take the other one off, he'd just put another on top.
Oh, I love this story.
I'm sure it makes people cringe if they're talking about the care of records, but Dad would put one on top, and he had those little, what are they called? The little plastic things that you put inside a 45 so that it fits on the player.
That's a good question. I know what they are.
And why do 45s have bigger holes than the other? What is it, 39 and a half or whatever?
Another good question. I don't know. I really don't know.
I'm just kind of throwing this stuff at you. But so I would get up in the morning and watch my cartoons, and I would actually pair up the jacket of the records with the records that were still on the turntable.
Yeah.
And there would be a few that would be strewn about on the shag carpet, and I would be watching Scooby-Doo, and I'd be pairing up the record. And I don't even know if I could read a lot of some of them, but I would basically I'd get used to the color of the label.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's ABBA. And I knew that one in that already. Oh, that's the Styx album. That's Cat Stevens. And I would pair them together, and I just remembered that, that was how they played their music. They loved records.
And I love the greatest thing about that story is that your dad would say, I'll give you 10 cents for every one that you do, or whatever,
yes.
Right?
That might have been a little bit rich, but it might have been 10 cents if you do them all.
Oh, I suppose, yeah.
It was.
But there's something. But like you made a very valid point. Like you identified how those records went together by the visual cues, like the artwork, and like and so you're paying attention to that stuff. You can't do that on Spotify or like MP3s or like whatever. It's like it's not ephemeral. Anyway, that is one of the major things that attracted me to records was the artwork and just the fact that you own this piece of music and you can hold it,
Well, they even have special frames now that are made just to display album art.
Yes, they do, yeah.
I mean, they don't have that for CDs and cassettes or
well, they maybe do if it's
iTunes
like a gold
downloads.
record or whatever, like,
I suppose.
But it's a very good point, though. It's true. I don't know what it is about vinyl, but like I just love looking at the artwork and listening to the music, and the whole idea of having some kind of a encyclopedia of music, like where if I was at home and I felt like, okay, I feel like listening to Neil Young right now, I could go to my stacks and take out Neil Young and listen to it like right then and there. I love the fact that I can do that, and that's partially why I have so many of them, because there's a lot of great music out there, and you got to get it all. Well, not all of it, but like, curated. Actually, and this brings me to another little quick point before I actually start talking about the actual reasons why people, whatever, record collecting 101. This is what I'm trying to get at. But I have a big stack of records that I'm getting rid of, remember?
I recall you mentioning that there was a stack of records.
There's
that
like
were going
60 or 70 of them. You've seen them.
And, I've seen them. They haven't quite made it out the door, but
no,
they're
going though.
They have potential.
And you know what I have been doing the last few days? I haven't told you this, but I've been like, do I really want to get rid of that record? I go through the stack and I'm like, I better listen to it just to see.
Yeah, I only have 3 copies of
and
this
then-
one. I
no.
wonder which one's in the best condition.
That's one thing I don't do, is I don't have many copies of the same record.
But
don't
you do
that.
have some.
I have maybe 2 or 3 copies of a couple of Beatles records, maybe, and that's about it.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, let's get to this. Let's get to this record 101. All right.
What's the most important thing? So I want to start collecting vinyl. What is the most important thing?
All right.
that
The most important thing, and this cannot be stressed enough, is like if you're going to play records, you're going to need a record player. If you don't play your records on a decent record player, they will sound like crap, basically. So do not buy anything that's Crossley or anything that will convert your
Crossley?
yeah Crossley.
Is that's the brand name?
It's
of
a brand name. Oh yeah, sorry, I should have explained that. There's just like this. It's like kind of like a cheap like representation of like a cheap company that sells record players. And don't buy a record player that like you could convert your records to MP3 or whatever like that. They're always all crap. And so just buy something within like a $150 to $200 range, and your records will sound decent. They'll have a decent needle, and as long as it's going through a decent preamp or just regular amp, your records will sound great. So that is the first thing. Buy a decent record player. Don't buy anything super cheap just so you can play a record, because there's no point. It's just like anything else in life.
$100 to $200 is enough to spend to get a good record player?
Yeah, I like a decent one. I mean, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on record players. Seriously, or turntables, as the audiophiles call them. Anyway, that's number 1 though. And and the second one is, you really want to support your local brick and mortar store before going online to buy your music, I feel. And they cultivate the counterculture, and you can go to a record store and they will help you figure out, if you like this, well, maybe you like this. It's just like the movie High Fidelity. If you go into like Backstreet Records or Second Spin, they will help you find
which are 2 stores that are local to our city,
local
which
to
is
St. John.
St. John, New
Local
Brunswick.
to St. John, New Brunswick. And Backstreet Records is an institution. I remember going there when I was in high school, and I would like talk to Gord about music or whomever else was working, and they would just like steer me into different directions of music exploration that is still with me today. So, don't underestimate your local record store, because it is a wealth of information when it comes to music and when it comes to just buying records,
Well, whenever we're looking at buying things locally versus online, I mean, there's I guess the benefit of actually being able to see and feel and really look something over during the purchase. And I guess with records, as opposed to, I don't know, CDs but we talked about the fact that album art, having, I don't know, having the lyrics, having all those little pieces.
So important.
It's pretty valuable to be able to hold that in your hands as you're deciding to make your purchase, and to be able to really look the record over. You don't really get that experience online.
No, you don't at all. Like you might get on Spotify or iMusic or iTunes. Is that what it's called?
iTunes.
You might get like just you will get the album cover art. But other than that, you don't really get.
We just copyrighted iMusic, so if you're going to use that, I really like that name. So
iMusic.
We've already bought that.
Patent
pending.
Yep. All right. So the third thing about if you want to start collecting records is records are no longer cheap. Like when I started collecting, I'm not trying to date myself or anything, but it was. You could buy a new record for $14, $15. Now, they're about $30, $35
Why
a
do you
pop,
think that
pretty
is? Do you
much.
think it's just because
because
the demand has gone up?
It's that, and just it depends on which pressing plant a record comes from, because some people do a really, really, really wonderful job, and if you know that this record comes from this pressing plant, then it's going to sound fantastic.
Okay, so this is interesting. You're talking about pressing plant, but what is that the factory where the records are made?
That's correct, yeah. That is exactly what it is. It's the factory where the records are actually made.
So can you have one record say, I'm, I don't know, Joe Blow with my record ABC?
Wow. Joe Blow, nice to meet you.
Could I have my record pressed at various plants?
Your album ABC changed my life. No, like if
are
you
there various
if you're
pressings of the same record?
if you're an artist, usually all of your albums come from one pressing plant because pressing plants usually work with different record companies. So if you're like making a record for Columbia Records, all of those records come from
this is like an
a particular
exclusivity
pressing
there,
plant. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and you were worried you weren't going to learn anything. I'm just joking about records.
That was my big fear.
It was your big fear. Okay, so, and the next tip is to do a little research prior to buying your record that you want to buy rather, and pre-listen whenever possible, because if you can't, then you could be buying something that you're just wasting money on. So that is like where online places like Spotify and stuff like that come into play. And a lot of people are just so like vehemently against Spotify, and I'm sadly not one of those people because I like to get my music wherever I can, and on top of that, it's a wonderful spot to actually
listen to podcasts.
Yes, like InfoQuench. Yes, it's a great spot. It's a great place to go and like pre-listen to an album and see if you really like it, and if you do, go out and buy it.
And there's some brick and mortar stores that are set up so you can also sample a record before purchasing as well, right?
Yeah, sometimes record shops, none in St. John are like this, but in bigger cities there's listening stations where you can actually, and it's mostly just with like used records. They don't allow you to open up new records kind of thing, obviously, but that is a thing in bigger cities.
I probably saw it on a movie once.
Yeah, it's probably in a movie. Here, I got a sheet. I'm cheating.
I'm really
number 5, have a proper method of storing your
the
records.
Fact that I'm
that's
really
number 5 on my sheet.
Not laid back. Jeff is ultra laid back, and so this is the first episode that he's really, I guess, structured, and we're following his outline, and he's got it laid out. He's got it down.
Have a proper method of storing your records. Yeah, like don't ever store your records like just on the floor, one on top of one another. Because it can warp them, and you just won't be able to listen to them, and you'll just be angry with yourself.
Should you store them like on the dash of your car in the heat of the sun?
Yes, you should actually, and then you can use them as frisbees. Because that's all they're good for.
Well, we have these great shelves from IKEA.
Yeah, the Calyx. They're called Calyx.
Expedit?
Ours are Expedit. You can't even buy them anymore. They're not called.
Yeah, we're
Expedit.
that old.
They went to Calyx, and those are like the go-to record shelves for sure. And you can get them in many different like variations, like 6x6, 2x4. They're fantastic, and that's what I use. Not the Calyx, but the Expedite. I think it was Expedite, wasn't it?
Yeah, Expedite,
yeah,
potato, tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
So great band, by the way. Great local music, Tomato Tomato. Check them out if you haven't.
Yes.
But it's interesting. We used to use milk crates to put records in.
Yeah.
And I think that they actually changed
They changed the dimensions of the milk crates so that they don't fit records. Basically, so records are 12 by 12.
BS is that they made the milk crates.
People
too
were
small.
Stealing them probably too much for records, right? They're the best thing possible for like DJs, like to just go from club to club with a bunch of records. If you have a milk crate, that's all you need. It's perfect.
I picture this, group of people in a boardroom having some sort of sinister meeting about how can we screw over the vinyl collectors. I know. We're going to make our milk crates
a little smaller.
1/2 inch smaller than the standard record.
I would have got away with it too if it weren't for you kids. So another thing about storing your records is to buy, splurge a little bit and buy these plastic bags and put them in bags because
are those
otherwise,
like the clear plastic sleeves that you have?
Yeah, the clear plastic sleeves. There's many different variations, but you just need simple ones. And all that does is it avoids ring wear, and that's just basically when a record is against another record and they don't have the bag on it, then they're going to get all scratched and they'll fade. The artwork will fade and stuff. So just buy some plastic bags for your records. And organize them in a way that makes sense to you. It doesn't have to be alphabetical. It could be by genre. Mine are not organized at all.
I would like to know what your method of organization of your records are.
I have I have a like a section in the living room where the records are that I'm actually currently listening to, and that's like that could be probably about 600 or 700 records. So, and then once I'm finished, once I'm like, okay, I've listened to every record here at least 2 or 3 times, because I like to absorb my music. I don't want to just listen to like one record, like a record once in one whole year or something like that. I like to listen to it, like 2 or 3 times a month, so I can really kind of absorb it. And so I just I have a bunch of records in the living room that I listen to, and then when I'm done, I'll put them all back in the major stacks, and then bring out 600 or 700 different ones, and then I'll listen to them. So I don't have to go back and forth to the stacks. But my records
seems like a pretty refined
no,
organization.
it's not at all, because they're not in any way in alphabetical order.
I'm dripping sarcasm over here.
Oh, okay. It's horrible. It's horrible. I've had other record collectors come here and they're like, "What? Your records are in absolutely no order?" And I'm like, "Nope, but I know where they're all. I know where they all are, though.
You can find them.
I know where all my LCD sound system records are, because those are the records I listen to a lot lately.
And I have like there's one little section of Amy records.
Why don't we go through the records that you have?
Well, that little cube of Expedit shelving from IKEA would contain Simon and Garfunkel, ABBA, Janis Joplin,
Vampire Weekend.
Oh, and then also when Christmas time
Tomato,
Jessica Rae. I like my local music.
Local artists.
We have some awesome local music here in St. John.
Yep.
But I also have, I guess, some Christmas albums that'll come out. Boney M. I love my Boney M.
I put the Christmas albums out and then put them back every year.
I mean,
the Boney M.
I like music, but you love music. I remember I had to go to Walmart to do a little bit of Christmas shopping. We talked about, we really don't do a lot of Christmas shopping. But
we don't often go to Walmart.
No. Yeah, it just puts a foul taste in my mouth when we have to go through the doors of Walmart.
Continue your Walmart story, honey.
I know. I think we probably go maybe once a year. But I had a few items I had to pick up, and you were like, just put on your headphones.
Oh, yeah.
Put on a little Christmas music, and it'll all be okay. And that's what I did. I put my earbuds in, and I put on some Boney M, and I just got my cart, and I just went for it. And
Mary's poor child, Jesus Christ, get out of my way!
And then we had, and just ram people with the cart.
And
then I also
you open up your eyes and there's like 3 people in your cart, and you're like, how did they get there?
So, but it really just put me into my own little universe. So I do have my own little section of Expedit shelving, and I probably have a dozen records.
It's funny though, because
2,000 records that are designated as records that I like.
I could bring you home though the most amazing record, like brand new.
Cat Stevens.
Yes, Cat Stevens. I could bring you home a brand new Cat Stevens record, and I'd be like, "I'm home, honey. I bought you a record," and you'd be like, "Oh, great, another." I know how your brain works. You'd be like, "Oh, great, another record coming into the house." Yeah, and then I say, "Oh, but it's Cat Stevens," and you'd be like, "Okay, that's a little bit better." You do not like records coming into the house. That's the moral of the story.
It's hard to bring stuff into the house in general when we work so hard to declutter.
This is after, like, if you listen to our KonMari episodes where we talk about decluttering the house, I'm trying with records. I'm trying. And that's all I can say.
And I think about, like, if you're thinking about vinyl versions and they're trying to decide what type of music to buy, how do they even narrow it down to what genre they are interested in? Or, like, how should they sample music to figure out what they like?
Oh, there's so many different methods by which to sample music that you may like. You mean like music that you don't know that you like, that you want to explore, or what do you mean? I don't understand the question.
Yeah. What do you mean? What do
like,
you mean?
Are you trying to say? Are you asking me though, like how people explore music?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, we have genres from, like, you have Africa, you have like sounds of nature.
I have everything.
You have, if people could just make up, like, I don't know, country hip hop.
Yeah.
You would have that.
I might. I don't know. I might.
Do you sample that online, or do you just come across it in the record store and then you're like, I'm going to buy that and try it?
There are so many ways that I explore the music that I actually end up buying. Like, I listen to many different radio stations, local 107.3 FM. where I have actually a show called Music We Like that's on Thursday nights from 8 to 10 if you wanted to tune in.
Shameless.
You can go to...
Shameless plugging.
I know.
No, it's an awesome show with Jeff and Andrew and a local show at our university here in St. John.
Yeah, no, I mean, so there's just multiple. You just have to want to look. That's all. You can go online. There's thousands and thousands of like podcasts, for example, that like feature different kinds of music. There's radio stations, like there's thousands of radio stations. There's magazines that you can read a review of an album and you're like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to check that out. Then you go check it out and then you buy the record.
Any specific magazines that you like as a vinyl enthusiast?
Well, I like the magazine called Wire, and it's mostly focuses on experimental music and like really avant-garde sensibilities when it comes to music. And then there's Mojo, which is like the UK sort of lot. There's a lot of reviews for albums and stuff. That's why I like that one. But it goes on and on. There's so many different ways in which to explore music. And so that brings me to my last thing for my last, point or whatever for Record Collecting 101. And that is like, it seems obvious, but honestly, you need to set aside time to listen to the music that you bought. You can't just buy it and let it collect dust. What's the point, right? Why did you even buy it in the first place if that is what happens to this record? So, pour over the artwork. Read the lyrics and just find out. That's what I like to do, anyways. I just like to soak in the whole experience, and once you do that, you will find that you are opening yourself up to becoming a record collector. And if you don't want your records that you've collected, you can always drop them off at my place, and I will put them. I'm just joking. I was just waiting for Amy to catch up.
Delete.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, that's my little tirade on collecting records. I hope you enjoyed it. That is.
Yeah.
This is episode what, 5?
Yeah,
we'll dive
a little deeper into some vinyl topics, I think, as we go, through our episodes. You may have some things that you want to zero in on and give some more detailed tips. So Stay tuned for that. And in our next episode 6, we're going to hit our I guess the next category of the KonMari method, which is books.
Books.
The category
yes.
of
that
books.
That was the most painful for me. But you know what though? This is an interesting little, and I won't get too far into it, but like there wasn't one single book that I got rid of where I was like, oh, I really wish I had that book still. I wish we didn't donate it or whatever we did with the books, So it was a good decision.
All right. Well, we'll go through that process in detail in the next episode. So hopefully you'll join us.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening.
And be sure to visit us at InfoQuench.com to subscribe and find out about future episodes.
You can also check out InfoQuench on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Till next time, friends.